Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It's Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me another episode of Strategy with Jason. Today I have a very special guest. I have the one, the only, the oh-so-famous Mr. Josh Mitchell in the house.
Welcome to the Strategy with Jason podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Josh, what's up, bro?
What's up, brother? I'm auto famous.
You're auto famous.
Yeah, me and Joe Webb have a saying that we're auto famous. Not famous in any other aspect, but automotive.
Just automotive.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Absolutely, it's a good thing. Hey, Josh, for everyone out there that's watching and listening right now who maybe don't know who you are, let's kick it off with a little origin story because I'm always fascinated to find out myself. How did you get started in this crazy little world we call the automotive industry?
You know, it's funny because I was in the mortgage business for 8 years. From boom to crash. Okay. And during the crash, I worked for like 8 different lenders that don't exist today. They're all bankrupt. Wow. Done. And I was like, I'm gonna try automotive. My wife was like, you should probably try that. Let's whatever. And so kind of got in the automotive world and it hooked me just like anything. That was 2011.
2011.
And I went and worked. Yeah, I got sucked in, and I went and worked for. I won't name names. I went and worked for the worst of the worst car business, car dealerships, where they did everything, belittled, yelled, screamed.
It sounds like the first dealership I worked
Took advantage of customers.
You learned a lot about what not to do.
Yeah. And I passed this little dealership in my hometown called Dan Cummins Chevrolet.
Okay.
And I passed it, and I was like, man, I don't like this dealership. And so I kept calling them, like any BDC rep would do. This before I was ever a BDC rep. Just followed up. Finally got a hold of somebody there and got pushed into an interview and spent 6.5 years there. And that kind of started my journey and where I am now.
Well, we got some cool topics we're going to talk about today. We got to talk a little bit before we started recording about it, but internet sales, which I think is a big one right now, especially what's going on with inventory shortage. I mean, I think you're seeing right now who the real players are and who the ones that were just, they were in good times, they showed good results, but that didn't necessarily mean that they had solid processes in place. So I think, you're really seeing that kind of that cream rise to the top when it comes to people that are handling internet sales. We're going to jam a little bit about leadership, which I think is cool, and then we're going to go into some BDC. But so let's start with internet sales. Let's look. Last 24 months has been pretty trippy, right? Yeah, so how have you seen how let's say the inventory shortage and just the pandemic alone has kind of changed internet sales?
Well, I think with leadership in the internet sales, it's all about speed. When you're talking about internet sales, it's all about speed. Forever and ever and ever, we talked about just get them in type scenarios. Yep. And my mindset is if the customer wants to work the car deal completely from scratch to soup to nuts, everything over the phone, over the internet, let's do it. Wow. Carvana doesn't have it over us. Like, we're the professionals in that. And so for me as a leader inside that department, it was about the speed. Yes. And really getting my team ready, to be able to handle all the obstacles that are going to come our way. With the inventory shortage, where we're selling paper instead of an actual physical vehicle. We've not been in that scenario in my time.
Well, no, that's actually a really good point. I actually heard a stat the other day from another vendor that handles a lot of leads, that they were saying right around 40% of leads that are coming in right now are already on sold vehicles. Yeah. I mean, the vehicle's already gone. All right, so there's just this excess amount of just leads, and for most dealerships out there, the way they're handling it is, yeah, thanks, Mr. Customer. No, it's been sold. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and they're not realizing that they've heard that from a lot of different dealerships, and yes, there's a lot of consumers that will call around and go 250, 300, 500 miles away to find the one Tahoe that's out there that's not sold already. Yeah. But the reality is that it's a different conversation. Yes. That one's sold, and let's go down the path of ordering the one strictly just for you, just the way you want it. It's going to take this amount of time, and really selling that fact that you're going to make it easy. And when it comes in, it's yours. We're going to get everything taken care of for you and make it an easy transaction. And I think for consumers, obviously they're getting trained to do this now at this point. because they've heard it enough. But most dealerships don't want to do that because most salespeople want to sell the car in front of them that's on the lot right now.
But is it the salespeople's fault, or here I'm going to throw a curveball at you, or is it the pay plan fault?
Well, it's a pay plan's fault,
right?
But we have pay plan issues. That's a whole other.
That's another whole podcast. That's true. But that is a pretty big portion of it. I mean, when your pay plan is built off of sell what you have in stock, and you don't have it in stock.
Yeah. When you have 10 cars in stock, what's the best you can do? 10.
Yeah. And there are a lot of dealerships. Well, look, there are a lot of dealerships that have adapted and have modified pay plans to create, this model around selling the paper. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then there's a lot that still aren't, and you get these salespeople that are just frustrated.
Yes. Yeah, I think a lot of salespeople, because we have this leadership issue of really kind of going back to the old school ways, which is sad because we've taken so many steps forward to already now starting to take 20, 30, 40, 50 steps backwards. Mm-hmm. And they're not, it's great to sell what you have. It's great to do that. But the reality is that when you have 10 cars on the lot, the best you can do is 10. And so you have to get your people to think about the future and plan for the future. Like I have a sales consultant that, sometimes her closing rate kind of isn't perfect. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden she'll have 10 cars drop. And so then it's like, oh, that's where they were. Because she's selling paper. But she's gotten used to understanding how to handle that customer who's looking for that 2500 or the Tahoe or the Suburban that just isn't out there, and to maneuver them over to building that unit.
Yep.
And it looks like she sucks. But the reality is that she doesn't. And I think a lot of times when you look at internet sales and even like manager pay, it's all been based off of percentages of closing.
Well, okay, for sure, right? I almost think that we need to just stop looking at closing.
Yeah,
ratios
it's maddening for me because
we almost need to look at sold ratios and like delivery ratios, and that's because it just
because if not, you're going to go mad.
100%.
Because for people who are like we're at 15, 16, 17% closing rates, well, that doesn't. It's hard to get there right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, the salesperson does their job if they sold the car. Yeah. All right, if they can't get it. If the deal doesn't get financed, or if the vehicle's 6 months out, all right, it's still the salesperson still did their job. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So look, there's definitely a mindset I think as an industry we have to adapt, and also I hope that it's a mindset that we actually don't lose. I don't want this to be like a temporary fix. Like, okay, we'll focus on selling paper now, but then when cars come back, we'll just go back to the way it kind of was before.
And I think that's what, when the pandemic started, I think there was some issues with, we went to, like, there's a lot of dealerships that they could only sell remotely.
Yeah.
And then when we started opening back up, when someone went to do somewhat of a remote sale, they were like, we don't do that anymore. Why? Like, we mastered this back then. Why would you want to quit? If a consumer, like for me, when I buy a car, yes, I work for a dealership and I don't buy Chevys. I don't, I love Chevy, don't get me wrong, but I like faster cars. And so if I call a dealership and I'm like, this is how I want to do it, and they say no, I move on. Because that's how I want to. I want
100%.
This is what I want. This is what I'm going to pay. This is that. Just work it out, deliver it to my house. I'll sign the paperwork and we'll call it a day.
And I feel like there are more people out there than I think the industry says that there are, right? And the reason I think the stat is low is because, well, we just don't close a lot of those deals. So they just don't end up happening, right? I'll give you an example. I just bought 2 pickups and I sent out 10, maybe 12 internet leads, and in there I said, look, I'm very busy. I honestly will not answer the phone. Okay, and if you send an email, it's going to get stuck in about 380 other emails. Okay, so just please text me, and we'll just figure out what the next steps are. And I was 3. That's it. Yeah. 3 out of 10 or 12.
And it's
right, actually chose to text me. Well, one I just totally gave up because you know what he said when he texted me? Give me a call.
The exact thing you don't want to happen.
Like, you went as far to actually get your phone to text me when I said you text me, and then your message was, give me a call, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing is that we have to meet the consumer where they want to be met.
And that's what I think the last 24 months a lot of dealerships have taught us, and a lot of dealerships have adopted, right? I just don't want to lose that mindset.
And I think with a lot of things, we've kind of going backwards, and it's just going back to let's get them in type scenarios. And that's, if we want to compete against the Carvanas or whoever pops up out of nowhere,
Yes.
That's what you have to do. Like, meet your customer where they want. It's an easy transaction.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times it's a mindset of loss of gross, like we're going to lose gross because we don't have them here and they haven't smelled the new leather or whatever the case may be. That's not the case.
It's 100% not. I actually bought more accessories because there was more time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had time to think about it. So I got the bed extender, I got the tonneau cover, I got the running boards, and it was just a lot of just text communication back and forth. And they're like, hey, Jay, we can do 3 different types of running boards. Here's a picture of them. And this is what that payment would be if we added these extra accessories to it. I was like, and I had time because there was time, right, for this trucks to be picked up. Like, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, all right, let's do that. For $60 a month, okay, cool. We'll just tack that on, But if I was in the dealership, I don't think I would have done that.
No, because you would want to go home.
I don't.
Because you don't want to spend 4 hours there.
No, I actually had some time to look at. So I remember when I was like, I didn't want to get running boards. I always never really liked the idea of a running board, right? And tonneau covers, I'm like, no, I actually want to throw stuff in the back of my pickup. But then I got, I was looking online, read a couple of reviews, saw some pictures of other people that had put it. I'm like, what, that does look really good. Actually, what, I do want it.
Yeah, and I think for us, it's for the consumer, it's an illusion of saving time.
Yes.
It actually takes you the same amount of time.
I would actually say more.
More time.
Right? Because I'm thinking, if I was in the dealership, let's call it from hello to bill of sale signed, take maybe 2 to 3 hours. Mm-hmm. All right. I bet you, because we did the entire process via text message, I bet you I probably allocated over 8 to 12 hours of time looking at things, researching a couple of things, and even about this is the first time about the lease warranty. Yeah. I'm like, so okay. I was like, at first I was like, no, I don't want to. And then I again looked up some reviews. I'm like, okay, you know what? All right, it does cover the tires. Tires are going to have to be replaced anyway. So okay, then I kind of put that cost in. I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's put it on there, and if it gets scuffed or I get chips or whatever, it's covered. But it's because I had the time to do the research and think about it. Yeah. I actually sold myself more, but I don't think that's what dealers think. It's just like, gotta get them in, gotta get them through, fast. Slow the process down.
Yeah, and then eventually it costs them money.
It does.
Because they don't want to slow down the process. Because the consumer doesn't want to slow down the process while they're there because they want to go home.
Yeah.
But if they're at the comfort of work or wherever they are, who cares? Who cares? They'll text you for 8 hours.
Well, they will. I mean, dude, I can show you. I mean, I got a string, just yards and yards and yards of text message back and forth that happened probably over the course of about a week. Yeah. When it was just like, hey, I forgot to mention that. Did you want to get the WeatherTech mats? There's another one here. I was like, yes, because the winters suck, and those are going to just...
Oh, yeah.
100%.
And a lot of them will upsell themselves.
Yeah.
I really think I really want the bigger model.
Because it's coming, right?
I'll take it.
You know what, I was thinking about it. Maybe I should do the Lariat, maybe instead of the XLT, or, maybe I should do the S model, but you have time to do that. Yeah. See, I like, and it's funny, because I've been seeing this language a lot lately in certain OEMs, not all, but certain. Ford, I've seen it used a lot as the word reservation. Mm-hmm. So I don't, when I first started doing my shopping, and the guy was like, well, wait, we're going to order it, right? I'm like, I don't know, it just felt tight. Yeah. It was like, okay, well, I'm locked into this order, and I better make sure I'm ordering the exact right thing, because it's kind of like ordering a meal and then it comes out, shit, that's not really what I wanted, and you have that emotion. But no, that they're like, okay, well, we're going to reserve it, all right, and then it's going to take some time. And then through the reservation process is when I was like, okay, add this, let's add this. But I actually think that's a word that I think I would like to see used in internet sales more often than it is right now.
An order.
Yeah.
Because it seems so final.
Yes. The other thing I was thinking about too was trade-in. Mm-hmm. I actually don't even like the word. I gotta be honest with you, I don't, right? I don't think customers like it. No. As an industry, we actually use it everywhere. I mean, you'll go to every website out there, trade-in form. Trade evaluation. Like, but what if I don't want to trade it? What if I just want to find out what it's worth? Like, I'll think about it, but it's just like, okay, so if I go through this process, if it feels like I'm kind of like implying that I want to trade this in. I was working with the BDC, and I know we're going to talk a little more about BDC, but I was working with the BDC, and I asked them to actually start changing their language, stop using the word trade in. I said, just ask about the customer's car. What do they drive? Right? And see how much more information collect. They were able to collect almost 80% of the customers that they spoke to, what current vehicle they were driving. Not as a trade, but then they had that information. And then the used car managers go, I want that one, I want that one, I want that one, I need that one, Anyways, I digress. Okay, let's go talk a little about leadership, because we were kind of heading that direction, and I got squirrely as usual. Again, over the last 24 months, leadership has changed a lot.
Big time.
What have you seen?
I've seen The Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, it is a great movie. It's you've seen leadership, like for myself, and I'm not patting myself on the back and saying I'm this greatest thing, but for me, this past 24 months has really triggered what makes me a leader, what makes me a little bit different, because you've seen a lot of lack of leadership, a lot of management, a lot less of leadership. Because a lot of them, this has been uncertain times, and a lot of them got so overwhelmed. We use the word that's been overused so many times with pivot.
Oh,
God. We've had the pivot so many times.
I want a shirt that says pivot. I want a bumper sticker.
Like,
I want a bumper sticker. Pivot 2022.
It's the Friends episode. But we've had to really make some shifts and changes and things that we do, and a lot of them got so fatigued with change that they just folded.
Oh, yeah.
And so a lot of leaders or managers just kind of took a step back and just let things go. And these times is when leadership really needs to step in and show what their true colors are, and how to actually lead through a pandemic and through all the different changes that are heading our way. And a lot of these people just stopped.
They just stopped, or they,
gross was
or really,
in,
what is?
so it didn't matter.
Did they stop, or was it? This was a point in time where you actually had to be a leader, and they really weren't in the first place. Do you know what I mean? Because, like, look, I think there are some amazing managers out there that are phenomenal trainers and coaches.
Mm-hmm.
All right, being a leader is far, far different from being a trainer and a coach, and it's not something that we typically like develop out of people. It's just like we just put you in a leadership role. You're a leader. You're a leader. Congrats. Here's a sticker.
Yeah. They have no clue what they just got into.
So let's dive a little farther. Like, how do you define a leader? What makes a leader?
I think for me, when I'm looking for leadership, it's the vision. The vision of where we're headed, how we're going to get there, and the willingness to change plans because of the surroundings change. Did we realize that we were going to have a huge vehicle shortage? No. We didn't realize it was going to be this bad. Did we realize that the pandemic was going to be 2 years and we're still kind of dealing with it? No. And being able to have vision, this is where we're headed, this is where we're going, this is what I want for each person inside of the dealership. Doesn't matter if you're a salesperson who's green to this, doesn't matter if you're the BDC rep, finance, a sales manager, doesn't matter who you are inside of it. This is where you fit, this is where we're going, and if you go down this path, this is what it's going to take us. And I think for me, that's what makes a great leader, because then you can say, hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to get there. And then everybody pushes towards that goal.
Well, it's a willingness to steer the ship.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, okay, we are in uncharted waters. Okay.
Yeah.
This is, if you've been in the industry, if you're watching or listening, right, you've been in the industry for, 20 or plus years, okay, you've seen some ebb and flows, you've been through a few recessions and so on and so forth. This is definitely not something that we've been through in the past. I mean, I don't think some of the conversations I've had in the last 24 months, I would have never in my wildest dreams thought we were going to have conversations like this. But you're right, though. I mean, I think a good leader is willing to take the helm, all right, grab the wheel and point the ship in a direction and own whatever that direction is.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think a lot of them wanted to freak out. which is understandable.
Of course.
Like, you're allowed to freak out when you get home, but not while you're trying to steer the ship.
That's true. That's true. But that is a good point. I mean, look, I think, there are a lot of owners out there that look at their managers and they look to them to be leaders, but they don't necessarily need to be leaders.
No.
And if they're really good at training your team on what to do and coaching them through the effort so that the results are better, that is an amazing talent in itself. All right, but it is a very different set of talents for someone to willingly, all right, stand up and say, look, if I fail and we go the wrong direction, I'm going to own it. Yeah. All right, so let me take the wheel and I'm going to steer this bad boy. All right, we're going to go this way now. Oh wait, nope. Okay, let's go this way.
And I think with a lot of dealerships, you don't have to be the GM to be the leader.
No, that's a good point.
And I think a lot of times everybody was looking around like, who's the leader? Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if you are not in that position. Yeah. If you have people following you, you are a leader.
Yes.
And so you have to just go through it. You don't have to be the GM or the GSM to be the leader of the pack.
But I think it does have to be clearly defined. Because so here's something that I've noticed. Look, over the last 24 months, I've done a lot more consulting than I ever thought I was going to do. My marketing agency took a hit, like most agencies did. I mean, we lost 65% of our business in the first 2 months of the pandemic. A good chunk of that's come back, but still, a lot of my time over the last 24 months has been spent on consulting. And the one thing that I've been surprised about of the hundreds of dealerships that I've stepped foot in is it's not really clearly defined who is the leader, right? It's almost just like, I'll get in some of these meetings, and it's not that it's a bad thing, so I don't want this to be a negative thing. It's just, they're all just kind of looking at each other, all right? Well, and they'll take bits and pieces. They're like, okay, well, I'll own this portion of it, I'll own that portion of it. But that doesn't work that way. No. So how do you define, like, how do you identify, that's what I mean, I guess. How do you identify the leaders within your dealership?
I know for me, because I've had some failed leadership that I've had to deal with during the pandemic. And when I was looking around and I was like, there's no one. I have to.
You just step up.
You have to step up.
Yep.
And so if you're looking around like, where's the leader? It might be you. Like, you might be the guy who has to take it, or the girl who has to take it the next step.
Yes.
Because in a lot of cases, that's what's happened, is that you're looking around like, who's going to lead the ship? And like, I don't know, will you take this? No. Well, I'm going to take, no. You eventually just have to go, all right, if no one else is going to, I'm going to.
Yes.
And in a lot of dealerships, that's what has happened, is no one else wanted to. So either if you do,
and why is that? Why does nobody want to step up? Is it because there's accountability and the potential for failure? Like, is that the reason why?
I think so.
Okay.
I think a lot of people don't want that level of accountability and that level of threat, because if it does fail, it's on you.
Yeah.
But if it's successful, it's on you.
Like
think about it this way. Right? You can go about it all kinds of different ways. Like, if it fails, it's on me. But if it's successful, it's also on you.
Yes.
And so if you realize in leadership that everything good, bad, and ugly is your fault, just go for it. Just go for it. Like,
a good leader, but that's a good point. Like, a good leader never stops learning.
Yeah.
Right? Through every success and every failure, all right, there's a lesson to be learned, and they continue to evolve and they continue to get better. But it's not only a mindset, but also, I think, kind of a bit of a personality trait. I was working with a dealership recently, and they were really struggling with their management to identify the leadership. And but I said, they're like, well, they're a bad manager. I said, no, they're not a bad manager. Okay, they just don't handle failure the way you would handle it. Okay, they're very good at coaching the staff. They're very good at training on the activities that are required to get the deal done. Okay, they just don't they don't feel comfortable. It's a comfort thing for them to take and own that risk of trying to move this way or go left or veer right or pivot.
For lack of better words. But I think with some cases, we put people in management leadership roles, and we want them to do certain things, and it's not what they're good at.
No.
But they're amazing at this. So let them do that.
Let them own it.
Let them own that, because you need that. And you can figure out the rest of that little piece.
Yeah. I had this a really good mentor of mine, when I was starting in the business, and he call everybody Jacks, right? I'm like, Jacks of all trades and masters of all. It's like, he goes, and his goal was never to have a staff like that. He didn't want a bunch of Jacks, all right? No, he's like, I'm gonna make masters, right? And to do that, you had to actually spend time to identify, as a leader, spend time to identify, what they can master and let them master, and that is what their value is to the company. Yep. I know, look, we could probably go for a whole podcast just on leadership, but I do want to talk a little bit about BDC. So let's segue over to BDC for a bit, because again, there's leadership in there as well, and it kind of goes into what we're talking about, processes with internet sales and stuff. But I mean, that's again another department that's just kind of really fundamentally changed, and change impacted. Maybe impacted is probably the better word. How do you feel that department has been impacted over the last 24 months?
Well, it's like with BDC and internet sales, everybody wanted to go like you have to have one or the other, and they always
like
kind of
separate islands,
and they're all separate islands, and the BDC is in a closet in the back of the dealership, and those type of things, and for me, what really worked to really shift and cause massive success is I married both of them. So I have an internet sales department and a BDC in the same room. And what it did for the BDC reps is it leveled up where they are as an individual inside the dealership, because there's so much more knowledge that gets shared. It's a huge team, and there's so much more knowledge getting shared that they become, because your BDC rep is a sales rep, and that's where I think a lot of them get it wrong, is they glorify them into like receptionist.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then they pay them that way, and that's what they get.
Yep.
And so for me, it was really getting them inside that room, in really the boiler room effect.
That call culture, that business development culture where they're all working. Yeah, I like.
And they're supposed to develop business, not just answer leads. It's
in the title.
It's in the title, and we were like, they lead handle. No, they're supposed to develop business, which was something that I think was lost. We just kind of was like, this is a BDC. No, that's somebody who handles leads, not actually develops business. And we didn't treat them the way that we would treat a salesperson. And I think with us developing them to be able to develop their own book of business, to become their own Facebook stars, and create business that didn't exist for the dealership on their own, made it huge impact inside the dealership. Plus, it allows them to be inside that room to grow, because eventually you want them to become a sales rep.
100%. I mean, that's a good point. There should be kind of
a transition.
Transition, yes.
Yeah, and instead we just kind of had this revolving door of people that just continued to move to leave eventually because they got frustrated. And so I really made an emphasis on training these assassins, basically, to be able to handle any objection, to get numbers to a customer, to really elevate their game, so they are another extension of the sales department, and are able to make decisions and make them fast, so the consumer can get answers.
That's what you have to do these days, right? Like I love the fact that you kind of mold the two of them together and they really become a team. Look, Josh, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our time, and I think we could definitely go a lot longer on this topic, 100%. But for everyone out there that's watching or listening right now, maybe would like to pick up on where we left off in some of these conversations, what's the best way to connect with you?
So obviously you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook at Joshua. I think it's Joshua Thomas Mitchell. I went full legal name on that one. And then Instagram, I'm Auto Disruptor. If you look up Auto Disruptor, you'll find me. And obviously, I'll even give you my cell phone number.
Do it.
So if you want to call me, text me. Okay, and follow him. Text. Don't call me, because I'll be like, who the heck is this? But it's 859-421-9377. I'll answer anything. I'll help you out. For me in this industry, it's critical for me to help other people in the industry.
100%.
And I've
very
learned
willing to
from
do
a
so.
lot of things, so you can take my headaches that I've had and my failures and not have to learn from them. I already did it for you.
Awesome. Josh, thanks so much
Thank
for taking
you.
the time, dude. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for tuning in to the Strategy with Jason podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Don't want to miss new content? Be sure to check out the full podcast library at strategywithjason.com to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Happy podcasting.